All right, let's dig in here. So laid out before me is the non-technical gear that you might need to climb a 6,000 meter peak in Nepal. So this is a lot more than you would need for a simple peak like Island Peak in warmer part of the season, like maybe mid-October or something like that. But if you had this, you certainly wouldn't be going wrong. So there's a few components to here. We've got clothing and on the right hand side, and then over here on the left hand side we've got kind of a miscellaneous section that I'll get into. First thing to talk about is the backpack. If you have Sherpa and porter support, and incidentally Sherpa is an ethnic group in Nepal. They originally come from Eastern Tibet. Shar means east and Pa means people in the old Tibetan language. But and not all people who are called Sherpas in Nepal are actually ethnically Sherpa. But essentially, if you have guide support, which is commonly called Sherpa support, and porter support, then it's unlikely you're going to need a very large pack because there's folks who are going to carry a lot of things for you. However, if you have less support, maybe you haven't hired a porter, then you might need a larger backpack. So here I have a 65-liter North Face Cobra pack, which right now it's 2022. This is a reasonably lightweight pack that still has a very robust frame for carrying heavy loads. On peaks in Nepal, 6,000 meter peaks, most of them that folks climb consistently, you do not need to carry much food, just a little bit of snacks. You don't need to carry much water, certainly not more than 2 liters during a day. And you also don't need to carry a tent, stove, or other camping gear because you're staying in lodges. And then when you do stay in a base camp, that can be brought up from the nearest village. So 65 liters is a pretty high volume pack for what you actually need to fit inside, especially if you have support. But showing this here because some of the trips I'm doing are in less visited areas and we need to camp along the way. Also, you'll see I have a 140-liter duffel bag. It's pretty common for you to carry a pack that's maybe 40 liters in volume, and then also have a duffel bag that's around 100 liters to 140 liters in volume that you provide to a porter. And the porter will put their gear inside that duffel bag as well as your gear, hence the need for it to be large. It also just makes it a lot easier for folks to pack. Like if you have a porter or a guide that's going to carry that for you, then it's easier for them to pack a larger duffel. And if you pack well, you should be able to get your backpack empty inside this duffel bag, along with everything else that you need for a trip, a simple trip anyway, and that'll make bringing your things to Nepal quite simple. Otherwise, you can pack between the 2 pieces of luggage, and most international flights are fine for having 2 pieces with no extra charges. Along with that, you'll see these shiny things down here that look like trash bags. Those are not trash bags, those are contractor bags. That's C-O-N-T-R-A-C-T-O-R, contractor bags. Those are much more durable than trash bags. Do not bring trash bags, they'll just get shredded. But bring 2 contractor bags, and that can allow you to waterproof the inside of your duffel bag, inside of your backpack, in case you need to transport things on jeeps or store things in Kathmandu, or if it's raining when you're in the mountains, that can protect your gear from the weather, which is pretty nice. Okay, we're going to focus in here on some of the details for the little stuff. So right here I have a medical kit. Usually you'll get a pretty comprehensive list including prescription medications that you might need, such as dexamethasone or Diamox, also called acetazolamide, as well as prescription antibiotics and things like Imodium, cold medications, and wound care. Usually your guide or trip leader will have a much more extensive medical kit, but because these are prescription medications, it's good to bring those from home. I also have an inReach device. It's nice to have multiple within a group in case something happens to your guide or to your guide's device. Random toiletries. I don't have all my toiletries out here. I usually bring, a small razor and things like that. Earplugs are really nice because sometimes when you're in the lodges, people might be waking up early or people might be sick in the middle of the night, and it's not a very nice thing to hear people who have altitude illness or gastrointestinal illness and are on their way to the toilet. I have a small laundry bar here for doing hand laundry. Definitely don't recommend that you bring liquid for this because with the low pressure inside aircraft and that altitude, that'll just leak inside your bag. So laundry bar is the way to go. I'll also bring a shampoo bar rather than shampoo liquid. And then an adapter. There's 3 different types of outlets that are used in the country of Nepal. If you're going to a different country, you'll need to check. You also want to check, how many hertz they operate on, and some other elements of their electric system to see if you need any adapters or converters. I have here, a money pouch, and for carrying goods around Kathmandu. Pickpocketing is not that common, but it's certainly possible, as it is in any city anywhere in the world. So you want to keep your things close, especially things like your passport and money. And then on top of that is a white bag. That is a compactor bag. That's C-O-M-P-A-C-T-O-R. Compactor bags are similar in thickness to contractor bags, but they are white and they're smaller. And white is nice because it makes them easy to label. So you'll see I've got, a cotton t-shirt here, a pair of shorts, a pair of flip-flops. A lot of times they'd have a couple cotton t-shirts and a couple pairs of shorts or lightweight pants, maybe some nicer pants if I wanted, for my time in Kathmandu when I'm not going to be trekking. I often do take a pair of flip-flops with me on the trek so that I have essentially like shower sandals. So I might take bucket showers while we're out there, and it's nice to have a pair of sandals to walk around in when I'm doing that. But all of this material can get packed inside that compactor bag and then left at the hotel in Kathmandu. It's usually pretty safe to leave things at hotels, so that's not a problem. That's just a travel pillow right up here at the end. And then I also have a pack towel. You want to go really light with the pack towel. Don't bring like a big huge towel, but I'll usually bring a small pack towel into the mountains as well, again for those bucket showers to stay nice and clean. Sometimes you can also get hot showers for places that have gas. You can pay for a gas heated shower, usually right around $5 US, at least for the current conversion to Nepalese rupees in 2022. I've got some human waste bags. It's good to bring some human waste bags so that you can bring your feces down from high camps. A lot of times, if you're going with a fairly responsible expedition provider, they may have a barrel and they can pack that stuff down to lower altitude. We're bringing a different bag to line those, which is compost bags to line the inside of these, and then we're going to bag all of our waste in the compost bags and then double bag it in there, and then it gets buried at lower altitude. And we have a relationship with a farmer down there who lets us bury our waste out there. We pay him some for that, and then after it decomposes, then he likes to use it on not his food crop, but the crop that he feeds his animals there. So that works out well. Incidentally, the compost bags, they do not decompose super rapidly. It still takes quite a while, so it's not a great solution, but it's certainly better than leaving things at base camp. And in a place like Nepal without great infrastructure, there are no sewage systems or anything up there. It's kind of a complex situation to deal with waste up there. Okay, other things we have here, I've got a thermos bottle here, really nice for having hot liquid or keeping your liquid from freezing. I have a HydroPack flux bottle that works with a bee-free filter that filters down to 0.1 microns. And I also have a SteriPen. It is absolutely not sufficient to just use a filter in Nepal, because there's all kinds of viruses in the water that easily pass through even the smallest filters. So we filter and then we use the SteriPen. And you can see I just brought some spare batteries and a charger for that SteriPen. 4 batteries is maybe a little bit much. That's just what I ended up getting from Amazon for cheap. So, but that we're going to share amongst a couple people, the batteries. But for the bee-free filters, I always recommend every single person has a bee-free filter, because they tend to clog even if you're using relatively clear water. If you're going through a lot of liters, they don't last that long, but they are compact and they are really efficient while they're working effectively. So along with that, I have a group filter here, and so that group filter will allow me, to have a backup. But I'm also the leader, so I'm the only one bringing a group filter, and that filters down to 0.1 microns in size. And then I have this right here is an Outdoor Research water bottle parka. That's to insulate, my HydroPack if needed. Honestly, this is kind of extra. You don't really need this. You can just leave a thermos bottle accessible on the outside of your pack if it has a good clip-in point, and then you can leave your other bottle inside your pack generally. But I'll use this as kind of like a water bottle attachment to attach to the outside of my pack. It leaves my water a little bit more accessible. Okay, other things here. I've got a couple pouches. These are money pouches. I'll use one for my USD and then another one for my Nepalese rupees. And then inside the one with the Nepalese rupees, I'll also keep an envelope that has my tips that I'm going to provide to staff, separated out and sealed, so I'm not going to accidentally dip into those. Because once you're in the mountains, you may not have access to an ATM depending on your location. And so, you know, if you spend all your money on your own snacks and drinks and celebration and you don't leave any money left over for your staff, that can make people feel very guilty, as it well should, because, you know, folks in Nepal work quite hard, and they don't always expect tips, but sometimes that's what's been promised to them by the expedition company they work for. So, you know, it's to be responsible. It's important that you conserve some of your resources to pay your staff for the hard work that they do. And then, you know, passport, I've just put a debit card down there. There are plenty of ATMs to take money out in Kathmandu and other cities, and even a couple of the larger villages in the mountains you can access cash from ATMs. But just make sure to let your bank know you're traveling abroad, or it's very, very common, you know, even on your layover at the airport, you might have your credit card or your debit card canceled by your bank because they think there's illegal transactions happening. This is a Sony RX100 camera. They have another camera, I think it's called the ZV1 camera, that's more video centric, and this is more a photocentric camera. But any type of compact camera is great. And you see I have this in an impact resistant, weatherproof, dust-proof case. Dust is a real problem for cameras in Nepal. You can get strong winds with very, very fine glacial dust that blows into cases, and even cases with zippers can sometimes have problems. So protect your camera, especially the jostling of walking and hiking all day long can do a number on some small electronics. Along with that, you'll see I've got spare batteries, spare SD card. There's a wind muff in there in case I'm going to do some video. I have 2 charging banks. This is an area where people get really carried away. You know, they'll bring like 40,000 milliamps, 60,000 milliamps. As the leader, I'm bringing 2 power banks. I'm bringing one 10,000 and one 9,000 power bank. In case one fails, I have a backup. If you just have a 10,000 milliamp bank and you're shooting with a small camera, on most of the common trekking routes where you have access to outlets every, if not every day, then every few days, in villages that have hydroelectric, where they can charge you a little bit to charge your batteries, that's the way to go. Just go lighter, make it easier on yourself. You will have to pay a little bit for charging, but you can also do this and just bring a small solar charger. This one by PowerFilm, it has a huge surface and it's pretty affordable, and it's very lightweight. It's just 3.5 ounces. So that's a great way to go, a small solar charger and then a 10,000 milliamp bank. Don't forget your phone. A lot of people shoot video and photos on their phone, and then of course a charging cable and charging block, and make sure that it's working with the adapters. Okay, and then let's see, then you might want for the flight, you know, some headphones, earbuds, any adapters that you might need, things like that. Okay, so that's the miscellaneous pile. Now we're going to get over here into clothing, and I've kind of set this up into the shape of a human being. So we'll start here at the foot level. We have a few different types of footwear. On the left is just a simple pair of trail runners. These are Gore-Tex trail runners. I usually hate Gore-Tex. I find they get quite hot, but once you get up to high altitude, then it's actually quite nice to have a Gore-Tex trail runner. Exactly for that reason, because they stay warm, they keep your feet warmer. They act kind of like a vapor barrier. With the low pressure environment, you lose more water to transpiration and you actually get cooled off faster. But with, you know, a waterproof breathable membrane like Gore-Tex on your foot, then that process of losing water vapor and therefore cooling in the environment happens more slowly at altitude. So Gore-Tex is nice, but be prepared to have really, really warm feet hiking around in Kathmandu with those things. especially in October. Temperatures are often in the 80s in Kathmandu, which surprises people. Even at Lukla airstrip, where you might fly into for some of your trips, it's, you know, you could be in the mid 70s during the day and in the 50s at night. So it can be pretty comfortable. I've got a pair of down booties. This is certainly overkill. You could just have a little bit of a small slipper for this, but this is just for mucking about in the lodges in the evening. Some of the trips I lead are in the winter time, you know, in December, and then it's really nice to have, you know, a more robust pair of down booties like these. But any kind of small slipper that packs down tiny with a sole will work, so you don't have to continue to be in your sweaty trail runners. You can let those dry out a bit. I've got back here a couple pairs of trekking socks. You know, these are thin weight. I think it's usually a good idea to have 3 pair of those, and then you can wash a pair and then let it dry and then use the next pair and start that one drying. And by the time that one's about to dry, the first pair should be dry. And so that's pretty good. And then 2 pairs of ski socks for the days up at altitude on the peak. And the ski sock is nice because it comes up higher, keeps your leg warmer, and also protects you from shin bang to some degree, which is the rubbing of your boot on your shin. I often will also bring these ski protector pads for my shins if I have a particular boot model that rubs my shins pretty raw. Like these G2SMs, for my size of legs, they do kind of rub me a bit, so I tend to bring those with me. And this is kind of what I've got with me right here. Yeah, this is the pad that I use to protect myself. This particular one is actually like a kid's soccer shin guard, but it works fine for that purpose. The ski ones are a little bit more purpose built, but those work fine for me. Also see here I've got a pair of hot hands. These are not toe warmers, these are insole warmers. You'll see on the photo here, they stick to the whole bottom of your foot. That's an important detail because just the toe warmers, they tend to give people blisters. And I do like this brand as opposed to Grabber. I find hot hands tends to last a lot longer and be more consistent in staying fresh. Okay, and then we'll go up a little bit. So my inner layers here, I have 2 different pairs of long johns. One is a medium weight pair, one is an expedition weight pair. They can be layered together, and those 2 layered together plus, you know, a pair of soft shell pants and overpants is sufficient for climbs, you know, up to mid-October, while being a little bit cold at base camp. But you could also bring either a nice pair of fleece pants, or in this case, this is a pair of synthetic fill pants. You can buy these in Kathmandu as well. They're pretty affordable. So I like to have that for mucking about the lodges in the evening. It's really nice. And then I have, this is a thinner pair of Mammut soft shells. I think this is the base jump pant. And then I'll use that at lower altitudes, and because it's built as a backcountry ski pant, I can open the side zips for venting, which is nice. And then I have a thicker pair of Outdoor Research Cirque pants. This is the old version. They're a little bit on the warmer side, and they block wind really well for once we get up above 14,000 feet. It can be nice, especially if we're crossing alpine passes. And then a pair of full side zip Gore-Tex pants. These are overkill again, right here. This is a relatively heavy pair of Gore-Tex Pro pants from Outdoor Research, the old Mentor pant. They're really nice. The thing I like about this pant is it has a pocket zip. So if I'm trying to take photos, I can keep my phone in that pocket and keep it warm, or I can keep snacks in there, I can keep sunscreen in there without having to unzip the side zipper to try to access my other pockets on my pants. But any type of lightweight Gore-Tex pant will work there, and the outside pockets aren't essential, but they are really nice. For my waterproof and windproof layer on top, I have an Outdoor Research helium parka, or sorry, not parka, but jacket. It's just a very simple rain jacket that packs down small and is lightweight. This particular one is an older model that still has pit zips on it, and also has pocket zips, which are really nice. Then I have a Nerona synthetic fill jacket that's kind of like a mid to lightweight synthetic fill jacket that is really nice at the higher altitudes when I'm hiking. a parka is way too much to wear, but I can wear this even as it gets toward evening, and that keeps me warm enough usually on the move. The parka is more for like hanging out in base camp or sitting around when I'm not being active. So my first layer, I usually have a synthetic fill, or sorry, not synthetic fill, but a synthetic t-shirt. This one is the Echo t-shirt by Outdoor Research. Packs down to nothing. It's really, really lightweight. I usually will have 2 of those, and I'll swap them out. That's kind of like my underwear for my upper section. So they're nice because when you wash them, they dry really quickly. So I'll rotate between 2 and get into camp and then wash one while wearing the next one. I also have 2 sun shirts, same thing. I like to keep them pretty lightweight. Usually I actually have the Echo hoodie. And then also this is a Mountain Hardwear sun shirt, and I'll rotate through 2 of those. Then I have a fleece zip top. This could be a grid fleece, or this is a Mammut fleece right here. And this one, let me zoom out a bit. This one is like a grid fleece in a way. It's got this kind of fabric on the inside. I really like that. It's pretty simple. It works well. So I'll layer all that up, and then I'll add this jacket or this jacket, depending whether I'm protecting more from cold or more from wind or precipitation. And then finally, I have the Mountain Hardwear Phantom Parka. This is an 850 fill down parka with a water resistant outer that's also very wind resistant. And so hanging out in base camp, or if it's a particularly cold summit day, like we oftentimes climb Mera Peak in December, so winter mountaineering in the Himalayas, and then I'll oftentimes have all of this stuff on. Sometimes I'll even start hiking with my synthetic fill pants and then take them off over my crampons. So it's nice to have long full side zips for that. Okay, and then upstairs here, I've got a simple ball cap. Again, I'm using sun hoodies, so the hood would go up and over the top of my ball cap. So I don't have, like a style of cap that has a flap of fabric on the back to protect my neck from the sun. This is a type of a neck gaiter right here. Instead of having a full-on balaclava, although oftentimes I'll combine this with a full balaclava, as long as the balaclava does not cover my mouth and nose. The trouble is, at altitude, it's really hard to breathe when you're hiking uphill. And so if you have a balaclava that covers your mouth and nose always and is hard to pull down, that's complicated because it makes it harder to breathe. And even if it has breathing holes on it, as you continue to exhale into that cold air, the water vapor from your breath tends to freeze into the mask and eventually makes it less and less breathable. So I like this style where I have another thin balaclava that covers everything except my mouth and nose, but has good side coverage of my head, my ears, the top of my head, and my neck. And then I'll put this around my neck and I'll pull it up and over my nose and mouth for brief periods of time, just so I can back breathe the rewarmed air that I'm breathing into the balaclava here, or the neck gaiter. And then I have, this is a Patagonia R1, I think it's called like the all-day beanie or everyday beanie or something like that. I'm kind of particular about my hats because I find anything that's restrictive on my head or tight on my head at altitude oftentimes causes increased altitude headaches. So it's a good idea to make sure that whatever you have used it significantly and it stays nice and loose. And then here I have a simple buff. This one is the Outdoor Research Active Ice neck tube. And it seems strange, but a lot of times you're dealing with heat and sun, even at altitude. If it's not windy, if it's cold, it can still feel quite hot. So I have that in a light color to try to reflect some of that solar energy back out into space. And then I have 2 pairs of sunglasses because it's critical that you have eye protection at altitude with all the bright sun and glare off of snow. So this pair is a Julbo pair, category 2 to 4 lens. So it is photochromatic and it changes from being relatively light to very dark. And then next to it I have Spectron 4 lenses, also a Julbo product here. And those are a little bit more reflective and very dark, which is really great for the clear weather that we get, especially in November, December at altitude. It can be really, really bright. And then I've got an ultra powerful headlamp here. This one is made by Zebralight. I think it's the MK4. It's over 1300 lumens in brightness. And it's also rechargeable and comes with 16850 lithium ion batteries. And so that's what these are. And there's a charger there that I've got to go with it. Spin us around. Hopefully I didn't make anyone dizzy. Sunscreen, super important. I have a dermatone stick that's for my lips and face there. I also have a 1 ounce bottle of sunscreen that I refill into, and that way I can always have a small vial of sunscreen in my pocket. This ThinkSport right here is 6 ounces, and carrying that on your person is not very easy. So I'll refill this little 1 ounce tube and carry that 1 ounce tube. That also keeps the sunscreen warmer so it more easily absorbs into my skin and doesn't freeze. And then I have this stick right here, which is more of a zinc coating. I tend to combine 2 types of sunscreen. I'll oftentimes use like a Neutrogena sunscreen at like 55 SPF, and that is mostly a chemical base. And then over the top of that, I will put a ThinkSport sunscreen that is more of a like a titanium oxide base, or a zinc oxide base, I think, for this particular sunscreen. And that's a physical blocker. And I find those two do the trick. And I often will have at least two lip balms that have sunscreen in them available, because it's not uncommon to lose one or leave one in a pocket somewhere. And I will just always have one in my pocket and then one in my bag as backup. And then I have a single trekking pole. I find usually 2 trekking poles is overkill for me, but other people like 2 trekking poles. Well, another reason I oftentimes will have 1 trekking pole is depending on the season that I'm climbing. If it's transitional weather from the old monsoon season, you can have driving rain. And although here in Seattle people think it's a joke to have an umbrella, it's an absolute joke to have rain gear in driving monsoon rains. It's absolutely worthless in, maybe 35 to 50 seconds. So I'll often carry with me an ultralight umbrella as well. And that also serves the purpose of a solar shield, which is really nice at high altitude. Sometimes people get nasty migraines from the really intense UV light, and all they want to do is be in the shade. And that can be hard to find at altitude at certain times of the day when you're up on a glacier. So having an umbrella can protect you from both types of weather, solar weather as well as precipitation weather. And handwear. I'm obsessed with handwear as an ice climber and general mountaineer. And so I've just thrown out a few different options here, and some of my favorite options. I will oftentimes use these nitrile dipped Wells Lamont gloves. And they're 100% waterproof, non-breathable, which means the heat that your body produces gets trapped against your skin, which at altitude is a good thing. That works like a vapor barrier. So it will keep you warmer and prevent your gloves from wetting out and getting icy. Another option, especially when you're hiking, is to have a more breathable pair of gloves. These happen to be pretty wind resistant, so they're not as breathable as they could be, but wind is often what makes your hands cold on the trekking, not so much the actual ambient temperatures. As you're working hard, your hands are going to warm up, but having some wind protection can be pretty nice. So I'll either bring one or both of those pairs. I have hand warmers. People get a little carried away with these too. I'll usually only bring as many hand warmers as I have climbing days. So for a climb of Mera Peak or Island Peak, I'll just bring 1 pair. Maybe I'll bring 2 pairs so I have a backup. But if I'm climbing something a little bit more complex, where maybe I have to put up some fixed ropes and then come back down and then climb back up again and complete the process, then I'll bring a few pair. And then, this is, if you have any ice climbing, it's nice to have a really dexterous pair of ice climbing gloves that have some Gore-Tex in them. So this is a pair of gloves that's no longer made by Outdoor Research, unfortunately. But there's a few other gloves on the market that are made for ice climbing that have a gauntlet, a Gore-Tex insert, and a modest amount of insulation. Once you start getting into a high amount of insulation, then it doesn't really matter whether that glove was made for ice climbing or not. The dexterity tends to drop significantly. And you could just go to a ski glove at that point and that would be fine. This is a pair of soft shell gloves. These have exceptional dexterity. This is my 3rd pair of them, which is why they look so new. I just bought another pair by Mountain Equipment. This is the Super Alpine glove. It has a really good sticky palm, so if I am going to have to be fiddling with gear, you know, maybe pounding in some pitons, or if there happens to be harder ice climbing, then I might use those combined with hand warmers. And I may size up if I want to use some really, really thin nitrile dip gloves underneath as vapor barriers. And then I really prefer crab claw mitts as opposed to big puffy expedition mitts for the type of climbing that I'm doing, and for my hands. My hands tend to be reasonably warm, but I find that the Soloist shell from Outdoor Research, or sorry, from Black Diamond, has pretty darn good dexterity. And then let me pull this out here. And then here is the a Diablo soft shell glove by Outdoor Designs. Usually I don't think of Outdoor Designs as a company that makes exceptional, you know, like high altitude products or ice climbing gear, but this is a really great product. It's got a leather palm. It's pretty simple. It's pretty warm for what it is, and then when it slots into this crab claw glove, the Soloist here, that combination is really, really warm and still provides pretty good dexterity if I'm climbing or zipping jackets and things like that. And I think that pretty much covers it, and that was a lot to cover. Hopefully that was useful.